No, I'm not interested. They didn't even say they're interested in you. Like, chill out. You know, I think, and it goes back to what Katie said of like, stop putting so much pressure on it. It's just meeting people of the opposite sex. It's great. And just get curious, because at the end of the day, you don't know anything about this person. You think you like this person.
Oh, I think that takes conversation and that takes questions. Takes question asking. So I'll just give you an example. I was dating a guy earlier this year, and of course, like on the dating profile, a lot of them it says Christian. I take that as a very whatever thing, because a lot of people say they're Christian and they're not really Christian. And so through just conversation, I was able to kind of ask, and I think you have to. And not that it's not true, but I think you have to kind of see their fruits a little bit. And so I was like, oh, do you like go to a church? Well, no. Like, do you do Bible study? No. Like, I mean, but I'm like not denominational. Like, I'm not opposed to it. Like, I would go. And so to me, it's kind of looking, I think someone who's truly like following Christ, they're going to be plugged into community. They're going to be plugged into church or a small group or something. Like, they're going to be doing things on their own, separate from you. So, and this guy, like, he had kind of a Asian background, so he was like, yeah, you know, like, it had some Muslim and some Buddhist and some other cultural things, and so like I could see how it really was not true Christianity. There was a lot of influences of other things, but it's really just asking the questions. But it's also in time seeing their character as well, so you're going to know that's going to come out as well.
That looks different for everyone. I'd go back to the question earlier about outside pressures, and I was having a conversation. I was at a festival for Salt earlier this year, and a lady came up with her dad and her aunt, and when they found out that we were dating app, they're like, oh, well, you need to speak with our daughter. And you know, she was like, you know, I'm not ready for it yet. And I was speaking with them, I was like, the first thing that needs to change here is the two of you need to go away, and you are putting so much pressure on her that how is she ever going to be ready to go into, you know, to try anything to do with dating. So I think you've got to look at what outside pressures are causing you to feel pressurized in the first place. And you know, a healthy way to date and a healthy way to start dating is to get to know someone. And you know, most of you here will probably have been on dates. Some of them will have been terrible. Some of them will have been really good fun but haven't worked out for whatever reason. And I think you've got to go into it just thinking, I just want to get to know this person better. The first date that I took Laura on, we went to like a 1-star food hygiene rated like kebab shop, like, you know, and then we went for tapas next, and you know, we're both foodie, and it was just about getting to know her a little bit better. I had already known her for a year through church before we started dating. So I think you've just got to look at why you're feeling that pressure in the first place. And it's hard. I think that's the other thing to say, like, you know, it's not easy. It's very easy for me or anyone else to sit here and say, you just got to forget about the pressure, like just get rid of it. That's not reality. But I think you've got to think about what you want out of that date, what you want to get out of getting to know that person, and you want to go into it with a healthy idea of, you know, I know Michelle has the 3-date rule, which I'm totally on board with. I think that's great. And if you go into it with that, like, you know, what do I enjoy doing? You know, if you're thinking of asking someone out, you know, think, oh, what are we going to have a fun time doing? Some people find it easier to go for a coffee in a public place. There's other people around. Some people find it easier to go for a walk. Some people find it easier to have an activity, so there's something to take the pressure. Oh no, like I'm sitting across from them, all we're going to do is talk. And for some people that works great. So take the pressure off by doing something that you're going to find easy to engage with another person with.
I think honoring your significant other, your partner, above all, is most important. If Douglas isn't comfortable with someone based on XYZ, it doesn't matter if his reason isn't valid. it's going to be honoring to him for me to cut off that relationship. And if he has that discernment and I don't, that something feels off, then I just honor him first and foremost. Like he comes first as my fiance. Other ways I like to honor him is like our phones. Like he has access to my phone at all times and vice versa. Our phones are not off limits to each other, and the moment that you put those like boundaries of this is mine and that is yours, you're not becoming one. And so I think that's something we've implemented, where he has my passwords to everything, I have his passwords to everything. We're not married yet, but that's something we've implemented to be able to say, hey, I honor you and I'm not hiding anything. You have access to anything at any time. And that's just one way that I honor our relationship with those opposite sex friendships.
So when I felt God was kind of calling me that I should kind of get back out there, I just was swiping, or I responded to people that swiped to me. A lot of it fizzled out, but it happened to be that 3 gentlemen, we had kind of like consistent communication. So I did date them all at the same time for about 2 months. I never had those conversations like the DTR, let's define the relationship. We didn't have that. We were just kind of like dating, and I didn't tell them I was dating other people. Well, I think first you need to evaluate if you are ready to date. And I think you need to know, like, are you spiritually where you want, not that we really want to be, but are you like secure spiritually, things that you want to maybe do, like, are you ready for that? I think as far as experience, I was like a late bloomer, I call myself, when it comes to dating. And I think you just do it. Like, don't put so much pressure on dating. You're just meeting someone else and having a conversation.
So I've been married for a couple of years now. I think it's really important to make sure that you keep creating time for the two of you. It's great to have an array of activities you do with friends and family, etc. But I think to keep that connection, I think one of the things, I may be answering a future question here, but you don't stop getting to know someone when you get married. And I probably know way more about Laura. We dated during COVID. I probably found out more about her post-marriage in some ways than before. So I think to keep that connection going, you've got to things don't just suddenly stop when you get married. You have to keep investing time. You have to keep listening and learning about them. So I think practically that does look like, going on dates, having fun, and enjoying it. That doesn't stop when you get married. It's actually like, just like the dating experience, it's different, but it's still super fun. So I think just investing time in each other is probably how you keep that connection going and growing as well.
I think just being honest, I believe you shouldn't reveal everything about yourself first, second, or third date. I think if people, like the Bible says to guard your heart for a reason. I don't think we're supposed to just tell everyone the inner places of ourselves or inner pieces of ourselves right away. I think it's important that we do follow the Bible and we guard our heart. And so I think it's just being honest and saying like, hey, I'm not comfortable answering this right now at this stage. It doesn't mean I'm not ever going to answer it, but just where we are at, like I want to make sure that I'm protecting myself and guarding my heart in this stage of our relationship. And that's okay to say those things. I would rather someone say that, like in my dating history, than someone just almost like being snappy or responding in a way that's not just like honest and vulnerable and just saying, hey, at the end of the day, like that's information I'd love to share with you at some point if this progresses, but right now that it's just not appropriate to share that. I think that there is a time and a place to share certain things, and that's usually not when you're first getting to know someone.
Relate to some of that from personal experience. I grew up in a Christian family, and I've got great parents that were amazing role models now that I'm married. I think spiritually leading, you've got to look after your spiritual life first. And Michelle mentioned, or Katye, about being ready to date, we talked about earlier. And if you're not spiritually sound, and if your relationship with God isn't right, and you're trying to date someone who is, it's very unlikely to work, because those things are going to be revealed at some point as you go through your relationship, as you get to know each other better. So spiritually leading someone, you've got to be spiritually healthy yourself first. So getting involved, I made a real point of speaking with other people and, wisdom. You don't know it all, I certainly don't, and asking good questions about through the dating phase. I meet up with someone sort of once every couple of weeks just to look at the Bible. He's married, and it's just a great time to be able to just check in and ask where you're at. So being spiritually healthy yourself is the only way that you're going to be ready to spiritually lead in a relationship.
That's good. I also actually I know I'm not a male, but as someone who did not really grow up in a Christian home, the thought of marriage, actually, I didn't like the idea of marriage. I didn't want to get married for a long time because I never saw healthy, godly relationships and marriages. But God just started bringing in these amazing godly marriages and godly couples into my life. And I was able to get a vision of what my marriage could be rather than what I saw growing up that marriage was. And so as someone who didn't grow up with seeing the most healthy relationships, and as this person is asking about, not having have seen that, is just start praying that God brings those godly marriages and couples into your life so that you can start having a vision for what a godly male looks like, what a godly relationship looks like. When God started bringing these couples, because I was abandoned by my father at a really young age, I was able to see how a godly man treated a godly woman. And I was able to see even how a godly man treated his children. And that to me changed my whole perspective. And I still, a mentor of mine, his name's Chris, and I always tell him, you literally gave me the example of what to look for in a godly man. And so if you're a godly man looking for that, ask God to bring you in those godly couples and godly marriages and godly men, because when you are able to see it, then you're able to reflect it as well. I've had people message other people and just ask questions, and they're like, no, I'm not interested. They didn't even say they're interested in you. Chill out. I think, and it goes back to what Katye said of stop putting so much pressure on it. It's just meeting people of the opposite sex. It's great. And just get curious, because at the end of the day, you don't know anything about this person. You think you like this person. You like the idea of this person, but you don't even know this person yet. You don't know their interests, their hobbies, their heart, their character, who God says that they are, their identity. You know none of that. All you know is what you think you know. And so just getting curious, because 9 times out of 10, you'll get to know that person and figure out you actually don't like them. Yes. Which you wouldn't have known except for the fact that you just got curious to figure out who they were as a child of God, not as a potential spouse or a future husband, but as a son of the King of Kings, And I think so often that, we put this weird pressure of I gotta tell them I'm interested. What are you interested in? You don't even know them. You're interested in the idea of them. You're not interested in who they are as a person. But if you just get curious about people, and that's why, I always say, don't just, and how Katye said, she wasn't even attracted to these guys on a first date. I was not attracted to Douglas on a first date. He lost his train of thought 3 times, and he was so nervous as hell. I was well, I don't know. I'm not a nervous person. Okay, what do I do with this? But it's God shows up in crazy ways when you just allow him to work and you just get curious about other people and truly treat them as if they're sons and daughters of the King of Kings. You start looking at people different. You start treating people different. And like Katie said, like you leave them better than you found them. And I think that's all you have to do is just get curious, ask questions, get to know the opposite sex, and leave them better than you found them.